Schalkes, my old friend, I've come to talk with you again, because a vision softly creeping left its scenes while I was sleeping.
Blau und weiß sein Leben lang. Hallo meine Leute. Willkommen zum einzigen Schalke Podcast auf English. That's right, folks. Officially the world's only English Schalke podcast. Welcome to episode 125 of SchalkeMerica. I'm your host, Richard Kharman. We were brought in by the lovely sounds of David Draymond, the sound of silence. Jack, welcome to the show. My co-host, the man who's going to join me in my misery tonight. How are you, my friend?
Just straight to the memes. Can't even be serious for like 2 seconds.
True.
I mean, the one blessing I think of, not that there's really any, but the one blessing of this continued run of awful form is just that the inevitability of this moment has been there for quite a while. So I feel as though the emotional impact of this is at least slightly softened because we had a long time to prepare for it and really know that it was coming as a certainty. So, it's a pretty awful moment, but I think all things considered, I'm doing all right. How are you?
Yeah, I'm all right. I think I'm with you on the same front where we knew this was coming for a while. We even mentioned it last podcast. If we lost another game, that was likely going to happen, or lost 2 more games, and it did. We lost to I don't remember who we played last, but we lost to Freiburg, and then we lost to obviously to Armenia. So, it's inevitable. We're officially relegated, which we knew it was coming for a while. But yeah, the sting isn't there in terms of that. I mean, it's official now, so we don't have to ponder it about it anymore. Maybe we'll start seeing the youngsters. But what are your initial thoughts with all of this coming down?
Well, exactly what you just said. We have a few games remaining now. I think what I would like to see, and probably what a lot of Schalke players would like to see, is anybody that we're not 100% convinced is either going to be here next year, is going to be part of the plans, should not be getting match time from here on out. Season's over. I think this is an opportunity for Grimacis to try to incorporate as many people as he thinks are going to be important next season and try to start building something going forward. And maybe some people would disagree and say, hey, you don't want to bring those people in and sour them with this. But, I mean, at this moment in time, in my opinion, it's a clean slate as of, like, today because we have that weight off our shoulders finally. There's not a lot that can happen between now and the end of the season that's going to be significant. But, as always, I just hope that we can show a good account of ourselves and do something productive as we head into next year. Unfortunately, Richard, and you know where I'm about to go with this. As I say, a good account of ourselves. We have to talk about this, and it's unfortunate that we have to talk about this, but there was an incident after the relegation to Bielefeld where a group of Schalke supporters met the team bus as they returned to the stadium, and this left the realm of vocalization of frustration and fan protest and that sort of thing, and quite literally entered the realm of like criminal conduct in terms of assault. You had Schalke supporters that chased Schalke players, from what I understand, destroyed property like cars and stuff, were throwing stuff at them, and it's absolutely shameful. And you would hope that Schalke supporters collectively would have the wherewithal to look around and understand the massive hit to our reputation that this club has already endured over the past 2 seasons or so with various scandals in the hierarchy, with the whole debt situation, and now with this incredibly awful run of form. You would hope that we would find a way to, despite all of that, head down with a shred of dignity or humility intact, show a touch of class as we exit the Bundesliga, and instead you immediately have this as further bad PR. And so, I mean, on behalf of, I think, and Richard, if you would disagree, let me know, but on behalf of SchalkeMerica, I apologize to the players for that treatment, because regardless of what your feelings may be about the effort they put on in the pitch, that's a line that you just quite simply can't cross.
How dare you, Jack? No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, no, I agree with you 100%. I mean, had this been a situation where we're in the mix and, we choke away the last 3 games of the season and then get relegated. Okay, I can see the anger, not what happened, but I can see the anger. We've been known from pretty much all season long that we're getting relegated. We've looked like a third division, fourth division team, the way we've been playing. So it's been no shock. So I mean, I get the anger, but not what they did. It was absolutely disgusting. It was uncalled for. Jake's to chime in and he says the videos of the incident were seriously unreal, just shameful. It was. I mean, you can watch people throwing stuff and then running away, and I mean, pelting the bus with whatever. I mean, there's mixed reports about what actually happened, but from what I saw, from what I heard, didn't sound good. It sounded disgusting, honestly, and I'm ashamed of what happened. I get it. You're upset. We're relegated. It sucks, but that's not the way to take it out and to do it. Take it out and try to incur harm or injury to people or to property. That's not a way to do it. I don't know. It's unfortunate that it happened. It is, because like you said, so many things actually happened on 420 that around the world, in the world and in football, and then this is for us. We get hit twice, right? Relegated, and then this happens. It's unfortunate, and it's sad to see, because like you said, we already have a black eye. We've already been playing piss poor this year. We know we're relegated now, officially. Then you throw this on top of it, and it just makes things look worse and worse and worse.
Yeah, and think about it from the perspective of an advertisement for your club going forward. I don't care if you're furious at this group of players and you want them out of your club. Guess what? They're not going to be a problem very long. They're going to be gone. They're going to leave, and now you have to think about who you're going to be able to attract. And what player is going to want to come to Schalke? I mean, already given the situation and how bad of a financial situation this is, the direction of the club, all that's already in place, right? That's already a massive, impediment to signing new players. Now you have players looking at this. Is this how we're going to get treated when results don't go our way on the pitch? Like, who's going to want to come to Schalke if that's the kind of treatment they get from the fans? I mean, you just got to be smarter than that. And I'm sure people are going to say, you don't understand. You guys are in America. You're not on the ground over there. It doesn't mean as much to you. You don't understand the emotion.
Bullshit.
I mean, even so, you don't cross that line. Yeah. You just can't do it. And so, yeah, it's one more black eye for this club that we didn't need. Yeah, it's sad. It made an already bad situation all the more painful. So once again, apologies to the players.
And it's not just, I know you're angry at all the players, especially the ones that are leaving and ones who underperformed massively this year. But then think of the youngsters that are on that bus as well, who are going to be on the team next year. They're going to be frightened now with all that stuff that's going on. You think they want to stay here now? That makes them think twice whether they want to play with the club next year. That's ridiculous. And you put people under that kind of duress, and I mean, it's just deplorable. And I don't care which way you want to wrap it and say you're trying to defend it. You shouldn't be defending it at all. Yes, the team should have defended better, played better, been more accountable to themselves, but this is not the way to do it. Absolutely. I never encourage or condone violence in any way, shape, or form. So this is absolutely what that is. And we've seen that. This is not the first. We're not the only club. We're not the only one who's done this. This happened around the world with different situations. Doesn't make it excusable, right? So, it's unfortunate that this happened, and I got some Jake chiming in, says this incident could also sway some players to leave who were on the fence. Huntelaar, Kolasinac. Yeah,
and I heard that Huntelaar may have been one of the people that was chased.
Why?
If that's the case, what are you doing? Huntelaar of all people? Are you serious? Hopefully that part of it isn't true. Not that it's okay for anybody, but if that's the case, then people have just completely lost the plot.
Yeah. JT's chiming in and says, understand fans' frustration from a lack of passion shown by players on the pitch for several years now. Absolutely. Scaring humans physically, mentally is never okay. 100%. He says, best time to join Schalke is now.
Hey, listen, I appreciate the sentiment, but I'm not even entirely convinced that the only way is up at this point. I
feel like Kaiserslautern said that years ago, and they're still way down there.
Yeah, and we're going to get to this in a minute with the guest is going to be joining us, but the idea that, relegation's over with, and now we head to the Bundesliga. We're gonna win the league and bounce right back up. That is far from a certainty or even really a likelihood, in my opinion. At the moment, it's gonna be quite a difficult campaign. So tough days ahead still for sure.
Yeah, and I was actually chatting with from Brian from the Hey Eintracht Frankfurt podcast, and we were talking about, he's like, hey, I've been there before. We were relegated. We came right back up. I was like, yeah, and I was like, I'm not so sure we'll come right back up. I mean, we got a lot of things to figure out going into next season, who's going to play. Going back to your point from earlier, I want to see the youngsters play. We already seen a good core of guys who've been playing a lot, but we want to see more of them play. I mean, if they're not going to be around next year, why are you going to play them? And yeah, you want to hold face, but we haven't really held face at all this year, so why start now?
Yeah, I mean it's the guys we always talk about, but it's it's the Malik Chows, the Timo Beckers, the Chan Bosduans, the Idens of the world that we're going to want to see get a consistent run, if at all possible. Because you do expect it to be very much a fire sale in the summer here, with significant portion of the people that you're seeing in the starting 11 probably not going to be around next season.
Yeah, and we're actually expecting a guest here on the podcast here to talk a little bit more about the game that we just had. But until then, we just want to keep talking about the relegation and what happened after that, because I think it's going to be difficult. I mean, it is difficult. We know we're relegated. We got to start planning for next year, and I think first step in that is first, stop the violence. But second, is get the players the pitch time, the players that you want to see next year. Like the guys who have been playing already. Paul's in the chat saying, will Hoppy be with Schalke next year? We don't know. If he is, great. If he's not, we'll find someone else. But hopefully most of the youngsters stick around. And then, I assume majority of the veterans are going to be gone. You may have a couple guys, maybe Fairman, a couple other guys, maybe Kalasinac are going to stay around, but I don't expect that to happen, Jack. I think, like you said, we're going to have a fire sale and sell a bunch of guys at below value, because who's going to want a relegation type player on their team? But they'll take the player for sure, just not at the value that we expect them to sell them at, right?
Yeah, I mean, you just got to hope that we can still get close to maximizing what we should be able to get for the likes of, Amina Reed and those kind of guys if they decide to move on. And those are players that you would expect would probably want to do that. Just hopefully the performances haven't tarnished the value of those players too much in the eyes of the wider European footballing consciousness. But who's to say? We'll have to wait and see on that. But at least there should be a couple guys that you think we should be able to cash in on. Maybe Serdar, maybe Harit. But it's difficult to have a read on which players even have any motivation to be here at the moment. And as you mentioned, there's a couple guys that are on the fence in Kolasinac and Huntelaar. We've been getting reports over the past couple of weeks that they're both actually considering staying if they can find a way to work it out with the club. And I mean, once again, after the incident with the fans outside the stadium, you have to wonder if that motivation is still as strong as it was.
Yeah, and TJ brings up a good point. He says, cut the big wages, put faith in your youth, right? Like, that's exactly what we're saying. Only way to save the club finances. Amica Tucci, top scorer in Zweite Bundesliga. We're all for that. Free Tucci. Pure restart. Something Kaiserslautern and Hamburg never really did. And I agree. I mean, we got to put faith in the youth, because if you do want to move up, you got to have that youth to get that experience. And then when they move up to the Bundesliga, they're ready to go. If you have some veterans who are, in the 30s or whatever, and they don't make it, what good does it do, right? So play the youth, get them ready, because Zweite Bundesliga is coming.
Can you imagine if we still don't find a way to free Tucci in the Zweite Bundesliga?
I will go nuts. I will go nuts.
I saw an article where he was actually quoted about the Schalke relegation, and was using the word "we" in terms of like we're gonna win the league next season. Which like I said, ambitious, but the fact that he was using the word "we" was promising, maybe indicating that he's willing to return to the fold and wants to continue if he's given opportunities, and hopefully we see that. Our opinion on Amica Tucci is well documented. Although, to be fair, his loan with at the moment is not going super well from what I understand either. I don't think he's doing much. I don't even know if he's starting all the time. So
no,
not the best sign. But hopefully he's learned some things and getting removed from what is a very toxic situation at Schalke hopefully does him some good too, and he can kind of come in refreshed with a different inertia perhaps than a lot of other guys in the squad at the moment.
Sure. Well, since we're starting to talk Zweite Bundesliga, we are no experts by any stretch. We have a resident, not resident, but we have a friend who is a Zweite Bundesliga expert. She also happens to be an Arminia Bielefeld fan. Let's bring into the chat Eva-Lotte Ball. Welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for the invite. It's great to be here.
Yeah, thank you for joining us. It's afternoon for evening for you. It's a little morning for us, but it's all right. Nothing wrong with this. How are you, first of all?
Well, I'm just coming off a shift at work. It's a bit weird with COVID. You can't really work properly, but otherwise I'm good. It's very weird weather at the moment in Bielefeld, in Germany in general, but otherwise all good, thanks.
Well, we appreciate you jumping on with us right after work, and congratulations to you on what was not a good day for us, but was a very important result potentially for Bielefeld going forward.
Yeah, I was a bit afraid of that game. I was nervous. Well, I'm nervous before every game, basically.
Yeah.
But because half of Germany or half of my friends, even the ones that aren't really involved in football, were like, well, you need to win this and you're gonna win this. I was like, please, can we wait after the game is gone? You can get into all that afterwards. But yeah, I know my club, so I wasn't really sure how it's going to go.
What I can say is we know our club as well, and if there's one team that you want to see on the fixture list to try to secure results, it's probably us this year. So,
right. I mean, that win was massive for you guys because it gave you a nice cushion. You got a 4-point cushion between you and I think Hertha. So you're slightly more comfortable, but not still a ways to go for you. We are, on the other hand, officially relegated. We were just talking before you came on about the whole relegation situation for us. We've kind of known for a while we've been relegated, but I think we also it was the after effects about what happened with the fans when they met the team afterwards. How that kind of was really disgusting for us. So we talked a little bit about that. But what's your initial thoughts? I mean, it's official now that Schalke are relegated, just from an outsider's perspective. What are your thoughts on what you've seen from the club this year?
Well, I mean, a lot of chaos basically from the get-go. I mean, there was talk that David Wagner shouldn't have started the season in any way from the beginning. And then you didn't really have the feeling that they were finding their way. So with Gramotzes, this was the first time they really thought, okay, we're going down anyway, and we need someone who can, well, implement something into the team, who can bring something into the team, maybe already work out who might stay for the Zweite Bundesliga season, who might fit, who wants to fit into that team as well, because it's a very different situation, obviously. And, well, I have to say I was a bit disappointed with their performance on Tuesday, because normally you say, well, at least if you can't do it on the pitch with goals and stuff, you at least run and just try to cover some ground on the pitch. And you couldn't really see this like at all, in my opinion. That was kind of hard to watch. Also, that they kind of conceded the third goal that was quite similar. I mean, if you compare it to the two Günther goals against Freiburg, it looked a bit similar from the get-go, and the just amount of individual mistakes for a team like Schalke. I mean, I know that from Bielefeld as well. We had that throughout the season, especially defensively. But at some point, you also have the feeling that there isn't a team anymore to work with. And I thought this was the most disappointing thing, even as a neutral fan in that situation.
So this is a really interesting point to me, because I feel like for a decent amount of the season, I've tried to hold back from that. What is, in my opinion, a very easy fan criticism reaction of being, oh, they're just not trying, they're not putting in the work, because I think that's sometimes kind of lazy analysis. But I find it very interesting that from an outside perspective, especially when it comes to a decisive game like this, the neutrals, you're not neutral in this situation, but the non-Schalke fans are actually seeing that and saying they're not recognizing the fight that they would typically expect to be exhibited from a relegation side.
Yeah, would fully agree. And I mean, it sounds a bit weird, but this is the game you should win. I mean, this is the game that, as a Bundesliga side, it's not even that it's the first game against a promoted side, and you can say, okay, well, we didn't really know what was coming our way, but just from the performance, I didn't really see a difference to the game in the first leg, and I thought that was probably the most remarkable thing, but in a very negative way. And yeah, I mean, you had that, I think, to sum that whole game up was probably the Huntelaar free kick. I mean, it was, I don't know, 2 minutes until it was actually officiated, because first they wanted to do a quick one, but the referee didn't blow the whistle yet. And just the way this free kick goes straight into 2 or 3 Bielefeld players, and then I think Kolasinac screams at Huntelaar, and you had the feeling like this you should support each other now, not scream at each other. It's not working. This can happen to anyone. And yeah, that was probably, and I mean also that scene after the final whistle when Timo Becker, I was really, really feeling for him. He sat there on the bench all by himself, and the only one who came up to him was Frank Kramer. So yeah, we had a similar situation here a couple of years ago with Kaiserslautern, where they were relegated here in Bielefeld as well. And they were all on the pitch. Obviously, there were fans there, so they couldn't really leave. But just, you didn't really have the feeling anyone wants to get together in any way in that situation.
Yeah, Jack and I have been talking about this for a few podcasts now, and it seems like typically when a team is fighting relegation, they tend to play a little bit better because they're really trying to survive. They're playing a little bit better. You start to see this a little bit with Armenia. You see this with, Mainz, Cologne. They've all started playing better because they're fighting relegate. They're fighting for survival. Haven't seen that really from Schalke. I mean, yeah, we had that one win against Augsburg, but other than that, it's really been not much of a fight. If anything, maybe less of a fight. And before this game against Armenia and Freiburg, for us, we thought we were starting to see some positivity, right? Some positive results. We got that win. But then against Freiburg, kept massively destroyed by them 4-0, and then going against you guys. I mean, it was a difficult game for both of us, like you mentioned. And, for a while, it was 0-0, and we weren't sure which way it was going to go. The first goal probably would have won it. The most likely person seemed like close because he was everywhere, and we couldn't do anything about it, and eventually did get that goal. But from your perspective, how difficult of a run is it to end the season, and what do you think you can stave off relegation?
Very difficult question. I think especially with Hertha being in quarantine, the new dates were kind of released just a couple of hours ago, and it's going to be very tough for them because it's a lot of games in just 12 days. And I mean, we've seen that last year with Dynamo Dresden in the Zweite Liga. As soon as you're coming to the point where you have to win the games, it's actually, there's something on the line for you. You have to win, and all the other teams around you are playing and put you under pressure. I think that's just like the big question mark that is around the Bundesliga. That's why I find it so difficult to predict, because you have another team in that mix now with Werder Bremen. I mean, they basically didn't win since they won against Bielefeld, and they keep saying, well, we're getting better, and Florian Kohfeldt just keeps saying, well, this is working and stuff, but it isn't. So all the fans are kind of pissed, and I do think that especially Mainz and Bielefeld have the upper hand here. Bielefeld, because it's not that much pressure on them as a promoted side, but also because, they play, in my opinion, they're more stable in the back, and that's actually one thing that was coming to my attention on Tuesday as well. Bielefeld had problems with, especially Brunner and Pieper weren't really the best ones on the pitch, and Schalke didn't use that. And that was kind of really, at some point you knew, well, we're closer to scoring a second goal. We were very close to score a second goal than the others. But the interesting thing is that we actually play Hertha when they're coming off this quarantine thing.
Interesting.
So because would have been the first real match for them, but they played like two other clubs before that now. So that's really the most important game probably for me. But it's so difficult to predict. It's only 4 games left for us, but we play Gladbach on the weekend, then Hoffenheim, Hertha, and Stuttgart. So really, really difficult to predict anything. And well, I'm not Nostradamus. I don't have a glass ball in front of me. It's very difficult.
And you just played us, so your level might just gotten a drop there.
And Mainz and Hertha with the games in hand, which is going to be a problem. But at least as it pertains to at a minimum, the playoff spot, you have an ability to control your own destiny and at least lock that up based on this result against Schalke. So happy to assist for that.
We'll ask all different sorts of people in Bielefeld. They will definitely tell you, please no relegation again. We still have a little bit of a trauma since the Darmstadt playoffs in 2014. So it's either like black or white in that matter. So either go down or stay in the league, but no relegation.
This is a brief aside that's probably going to derail us, but I had an interesting sort of like full circle moment because I believe a season or two ago we played Armenia in the DFB Pokal, and I remember that being a pretty wild game for the most part, where there were some goals back and forth. And I remember at that moment watching that game, that was one of the first times where I was like, "Oh, as a club, we're in trouble." Like, and that's not supposed to be an insult in Armenia, but like early in the DFB, I mean, you would expect, especially because I think we were probably still in the Champions League at that point, or just, coming off of European competitions, like we should be able to handle our business a little bit better. When I was watching how easy it was for a team like Armenia to play against us at that moment, I was like, this is not good for the direction of the club. And then wouldn't you know it, we're on the road at Armenia Bielefeld trying to save ourselves and we can't get it done. And so that was just a weird kind of like, culmination of like a couple years of like slowly watching us slide into this. And it was really disappointing. I did have one question for you in terms of for a club like Schalke in particular. This is not an excuse because everyone is going through this with fans not being in the stadiums and everything, but especially when you see the sort of violent lashing out from the fans that you did, how much, I mean, this is not an excuse for that, but how much of that do you think is attributable to the physical distance that's been between the supporters and the players for most of the season? Because generally when you're in this kind of situation, the fans are, at least in the Nord Curve, they're able to express themselves on a weekly basis and communicate more directly with the team than perhaps they've been able to. And so I feel like there's kind of been this perhaps bottling up of emotions and frustration, and that's why you see some of this pouring out, and maybe that even contributed to why the team isn't as together on the pitch as you would expect. Like you said, Timo Becker by himself. How big of a role do you feel like the fans play in kind of engendering that spirit in the first place?
Oh, definitely a huge part. I mean, especially with Schalke, you always had this, either everyone is in favor of them or you have huge problems, but the club comes first for them. And you do have the feeling that how this season went that day, I mean, you can go down and you can go down like Schalke is going down. And I think this is what really pains them. And this is, as you've said, it doesn't really excuse anything, but in like the first step of being angry at the players, at the club, at the officials, at the coaches, I do understand that in a way, because you feel a bit helpless. You sit there at home watching that game, not being able to support your team for 12 months now. And I mean, I think Schalke is one of the I think there was only a few clubs that weren't allowed to have fans, even in this small period of time when fans were allowed to have fans. And a lot of people were saying that, well, luckily for Schalke, but I think it could have helped to have them there just to have that support, even if it's negative support in a way, because sometimes teams need that. I know that from my club, I know that from a couple of clubs, even if it's negative support, sometimes it's really helping in a way that, well, it does show you what is at stake. And I think that's the biggest problem that I think a couple of fans are afraid, but also a couple of players and officials, that as soon as we're coming back to fans at some stage, when COVID is sometime over here, which I don't know when it's going to be, but that there will be no fans back in the stadium, or the relationship between club and fans will be so bad that it's irreplaceable. You can't work it out anymore. And I think that's why they're afraid of that in the Zweite Liga, the club will cease to exist, also because of all the money problems.
Yeah, this is going to be, I think, a very important summer in terms of reestablishing a healthy relationship between the supporter base and the hierarchy of the club, for sure. So I think that's a good point.
Yeah, it's another person who understands what we're going through. A lifelong Cologne supporter, Phil Bonney is in the chat. He says, "My deepest sympathy on relegation. It sucks." So thank you, Phil. Hope you're doing well. Yeah, it's difficult, and the way we've done this, way we've got to this point is really the scary part, I think, for me, because it's if it I don't know, it doesn't feel like there's a quick end. Some clubs can go down and come right back up. But more than anybody, being the co-host of the Zweite Bundesliga podcast, that there's a lot of good clubs down there. I mean, arguably, if Hertha goes down, there's arguably 4 big clubs, maybe 5. That's not easy to come back from. I mean, how
Talk
difficult.
About the Super League, am I right?
Yeah, right. The real Super League. So, what does Schalke have to look forward to in the Zweite Bundesliga with the clubs that are currently there?
Well, first of all, that it's going to be very tough because teams like, Sandhausen is a club you can't really be sure that they will stay in the league.
Yeah.
But if you look at the moment, which clubs are coming up from the Dritte Liga as well, like Rostock, like Dresden, potentially 80-60 as well. I mean, those are all clubs that like a traditional clubs, as we say in Germany, and they will never back down. Like they will always take this fight against Schalke because they know they're always the smaller team, and this is like this is why HSV, for example, was struggling so much against clubs like Regensburg and Sandhausen, because they know they can't lose in this game, even if they lose. Or being defeated by HSV, they say, well, you're the bigger club, you have like tons of more money than we do.
Right.
So this is the first step. You have to know, no matter at what place you are in the table, you will always be the team that the others expect to win. And I think that's the first step. And then, of course, it's not that easy. I mean, you see it with Hannover, especially HSV. I mean, even Stuttgart was struggling from time to time last season. If you look down at Kaiserslautern 1860, you have to find a good balance, and that's what I'm kind of afraid of at Schalke, because if I hear talk of them wanting Kolasinac to stay, I think it's not the right move, because he will cost tons of money, and you don't have that in Zweite Bundesliga. If you don't get up immediately, it will cost you tons of money. And they need to build up a new team, but the struggle is really that the youth teams can't play at the moment, so it's going to be even harder for them than usual. But for them it's probably better if a team like Bielefeld or potentially even Bremen, Mainz go down, because they're not as big, they don't have the same amount of money behind them, so they wouldn't there would be not like 2 big sharks coming down, but big shark and maybe a slightly bigger fish. But I think it's very difficult to say. There's not that perfect plan to get through the Zweite Bundesliga. You see that with Bochum this year, with Arminia last year. Even Köln was struggling 2 years ago. So there's not that master plan to get promoted.
I think this is one thing that Richard and I have been kind of having a dialogue with our viewers for most of the season. Is there's this sense among some Schalke supporters that, we'll just go down to the Zweite Bundesliga, we'll rebuild, we'll win the league, we'll pop back up, and then we'll be in great financial shape and we'll be good to go. Can you, for those people that are, and I hope most people have kind of backed off of that, but for those supporters that are still kind of in that frame of mind, can you educate our viewers on how difficult of a league this is, and kind of what the fortunes of some of these bigger clubs who have dropped down recently have been, and how difficult it has been for them to get back up?
Yeah, so the Zweite Bundesliga is not potentially a league where you can say, well, I'm just going to try all kinds of stuff, and maybe we have a really good season. I mean, only because it's the second best league in Germany, it doesn't mean there are only all of the teams can't play football. That's not it. I mean, the gap between Bundesliga and Zweite Liga is huge. Don't get me wrong, but
the gap between Bundesliga and Schalke this season is pretty huge.
True. You said that. I didn't do that. But you really see, I mean, HSV was probably the perfect example for that, because they came down and they just got a bunch of people who played Bundesliga at some stage. And well, I mean, now they have a good mixture between really good individual players, but also players that just not really pretty to play against. I mean, they're still struggling, but that's a different point. But you can see that you can even have a really, really good squad, which HSV has with Kittel, with Yatta, with Terodde, obviously. But
Yeah.
you kind of had the feeling, okay, this is our third attempt, which is going to get Terodde on the pitch, and he's going to be like single-handedly pull us up into the Bundesliga again. This is not like, that's why it's really important to have a team that works. This is what you see at Bochum. This is what you saw at Arminia last year. You don't need the best players at your team. You just need to act like a team. You need not to lose games. You don't need to win every game, but just the most important thing is that you don't lose. So the thing is, if you don't look out, and I mean, Nuremberg has struggled for that as well. I mean, they're once again closer to the relegation playoff spot than they are to the promotion playoff spot.
Yeah.
And I think that's not because they, I don't know, they're just unlucky, but because they still haven't really seen what it is important about this Zweite Bundesliga. It's not, you can't really have a blueprint to this.
Right.
And I think that's that's the first thing you need to look out, that you have a team that just loves to play together, and then it won't be promotion right away. But if you're like, I mean, it can be really expensive, but I thought like for Schalke it would be probably good to stay in the league for 2 or 3 years just to actually get the fans back in the joy of playing football.
Yeah.
But it won't work from like just in a couple of days or couple of months. This needs time.
Yeah, I agree about that. And I think we've seen with clubs like Hamburg, where they went down there and they try to change the system completely and play with, like, I think Pollerbeck or whoever the goalie was, and try to play him as a defender as well, and try to really change things up, thinking it'd be easy to come right back up. And they've been down there for 3 seasons at least. So it's not easy. Like you said, I think we're going to have to find out a way to stop from being a yo-yo team, to Schalke Fan UK's point there, but also to build something actually and that can sustain itself in the Bundesliga. Because like you said, if you just go up and keep going back down, nobody wants that. And you're just going to be hurting for money there at that point. So it's not easy. And we've been telling people for all season long, because we've known this has happened, that Zweite Bundesliga is difficult. Be ready for it. And people haven't yet. So hopefully they get the point with this.
Yeah, seriously. And I mean, and the thing is, as well, is it's to another point that was brought up earlier, is I don't think anyone's going to be intimidated by Schalke, but you're still going to get most clubs' best effort, every time that you play them, because it's such a novelty to have us there, and just because everyone's going to be motivated to. And like you said, the pressure's all on our side on that, equation, because we're the bigger club, even if the squad isn't there and the product on the pitch isn't there. So it's a weird situation, because we've seen things from the club that state from a financial perspective that we can survive one season in the Zweite Bundesliga, but beyond that, the waters kind of get murky. And so what I'm concerned about is that kind of financial pressure is going to cause us maybe to re-sign somebody like Kolasinac for more money than we should, and try to throw everything at getting promoted immediately. And if that fails, and we've spent more money than we should have in that initial season, that could even potentially be more disastrous than trying to find a way to plan for a couple years in the Zweite Bundesliga to rebuild this thing back up with a more responsible financial picture, to whatever extent that's possible.
Yeah, and I mean, we really see that at Hannover at the moment. I mean, they, especially with someone like Martin Kind behind them, he keeps saying, well, we can still be promoted. I mean, you can see it at Düsseldorf as well. Uwe Rösler was talking about there's still a possibility of us being promoted, like a couple of weeks ago, after they just drew against Sandhausen, and as a Fortuna Düsseldorf being relegated from the Bundesliga, those are the games you should win. Even if the opponent doesn't offer much, this is what you should win. And I think that's your point there was very correct. You shouldn't put all the pressure on the team immediately. I mean, you don't really even have a team yet that is going to play.
It's very true. It's very true.
Yeah, I mean, it is like that. I mean, I know that, of course, Matthew keeps saying that he wants Genki Haraguchi to play for Schalke, but my point is that, yeah, but he isn't single-handedly going to play at the club. He can't play all 10 positions on the pitch.
Exactly.
And
only Weston McKennie can do that.
Only Weston McKennie can do that.
Well, and I think that's really the first point. You need to have a team that is like willing to play for you for at least 2 years in the Zweite Bundesliga, because you always have that. This is your first target. I mean, of course, inside the club, it's very obvious that they say, okay, we need to get it back up again immediately. But after this season, it would be not really clever to say, well, we're going to be promoted right away. Don't mind HSV. I don't mind like all the other clubs that are going that went down, didn't come up immediately again. Yeah. We're going to be different, and I think that's really, really dangerous.
Sorry, go ahead, Richard.
I was going to say, it seems like Peter Knabel's one's already saying that we're going right back up next year, and he's already making these lofty goals for us, and like, you're just setting us up for failure, you know, because if we don't reach that, I mean, the morale goes even lower than it already is, so.
Yeah, I feel like we're at a point right now where Schalke fans don't need that sort of carrot, like, oh, don't worry, we'll be right back up. Like, we don't need those false promises to keep us engaged. I think we understand the reality of where we are, and we just need to try to do everything possible to dig ourselves out of the instability and try to find a firm footing going forward. And I think if we do that, most Schalke supporters are going to be okay with that being, you know, a several year-long process in terms of how long that's going to take. From the perspective of somebody who is much more deeply immersed in the Zweite Bundesliga as we are, and kind of, you know, like, is there more hype for the upcoming season because Schalke is going to be involved? I mean, like, is there more excitement because of how many large clubs are down there, or is that not really how it's viewed at all?
Oh, definitely. I mean, there's this joke that every year it's called the best Zweite Liga of the world, like every year. But I mean, really, if you look at the teams that are potentially promoted to the Zweite Liga, who teams are potentially being relegated, and not to be in any kind of mean to Würzburg or potentially Sandhausen, but they aren't really the first teams that come in mind when you think about really, I don't know, traditional football clubs in Germany, and but really like Rostock, Dresden, 1860. I mean, not sure about Ingolstadt, but those are teams you really want to see back up in higher leagues. And then, for example, if you still have St. Pauli and HSV, at the moment, I would say St. Pauli is closer to the Bundesliga than HSV is, just from the from how they're playing. I mean, I'm hyped, even if we not like. I don't really at all costs want to be in that league, but you have potential derbies that can really spark the flames. And I mean, you have games like St. Pauli, Rostock, that I think some police forces in Germany might hope that there won't be fans in the stadiums yet.
There could be some content on social media next season.
Yeah, no kidding.
But yeah, it's going, and well, I mean, the clubs that are coming up, they have potential, definitely. The clubs that are coming down, so, and because it's always that close. I mean, we in the Bundesliga, you have the fight who is going to go up until the very last match day. I mean, not all of the teams, but probably at least places 2 and 3 are always in the mix, as well as the last 3. So yeah, if teams like Schalke, I don't know who else is going down, obviously. Let's take, for example, Hertha Bremen. Let's say HSV stays in the league. You have more derbies in the Zweite Bundesliga than you have in the Bundesliga.
Yeah, no kidding. I mean, 2 match days away at Hamburg with St. Pauli and Hamburg potentially if they don't get promoted. You got that. You got all. I mean, I know a lot of people are gonna be excited. I'm excited just to see new teams, and I'm not excited to be down there, but I'm excited about the new clubs that you get to see that you don't often see. So, talking from one Super League to another. What are your thoughts on all this has gone on in this last 4 days with the Super League talk?
Yeah, so I wanted to go to bed on Sunday night, and then I got this
Text after text, tweet.
this push notification. I was like, you gotta be kidding me. Like, am I already asleep? Is this some kind of nightmare? And you could already see, like, my first thought was kind of, you can immediately see that this Super League is not targeted at European fans. It's the Asian market and probably even the American market, but not the European, because they were kind of thinking, well, our fans can wake up to this in the morning, and just I think they really underestimated how pissed fans would be, basically. And I think that says a lot about how much football has just distanced itself from its base.
Yeah.
And that's very worrying. But at the same time, I was just very happy. There was like a small evil on my shoulder, like a devil on my shoulder that was saying, like, yes, the fans are bringing back football. And I think you could really see that. And it gave hope to all things in the future, potentially the UCL reform, because this is not going away. And this is kind of the UEFA way of a Super League. And that's what I still have in mind. I mean, my club isn't coming to the Super League in any time soon, so don't have to think about that too much. But yeah, I mean, I wasn't surprised of the teams that were in this mix, because come on, I mean, we all know English football kind of how it has developed, but you could really see how important like the 50+1 rule is to fans as well. Even if it's not implemented anymore in your minds, it's still very important. And the football belongs to the people. I mean, without the people, it wouldn't be. And the officials are always happy to show, I don't know, Liverpool fans cheering, but they actually don't care whether they're there or not. And I think that's just very sad, and it makes me angry. I'm happy that it didn't work out, but at the same time, I'm just very angry that you have the reform instead, which wasn't talked about enough. And I mean, a lot of other things. You still have, I mean, that the UEFA said afterwards, I mean, this is going against all solidarity. This is not for the fans. And like, honestly, you have a European Cup this year in 8 different countries. You're pushing countries out that aren't allowing fans in their stadiums during a global pandemic that is still going on in Europe. So I don't know. Don't do that. So yeah, still angry. I loved a bit on Tuesday. I did love a lot, actually. But at the same time, it's just my football soul is still a bit bleeding.
When you talk about who the Super League, what sort of fan the Super League was targeting, this is the part of it that I have such a difficult time wrapping my head around. And I guess I just need to kind of divorce myself from the notion that I am the stereotypical North American fan that these clubs are targeting. But, we talk about like, the structure of the Super League is targeted towards, an American sort of sporting mindset with the closed system and that sort of thing. And the thing is, like, I was attracted to the game at, the way it is. Like, I found, the beauty and the intrigue in the European game because it isn't American sports, because it's different. And soccer is exploding in the United States right now in popularity. When you look at, all the different leagues that we have access to through various streaming services, anything, like, Americans are spoiled for choice right now in terms of the amount of football that we can watch. And so I find it interesting that, these massive clubs feel like they need to pander or contort themselves into kind of a shape that's so unnatural to the European game to appeal to. I mean, I know it's not just the American market, but it already seems like they're being successful without that. And so that really helps kind of drive home the point about like how much of this is just pure greed or whatever, because aren't they doing well enough with that outreach and growing their fan bases? I mean, we're literally sitting here right now and you're talking to, 2 Americans who are supporting Schalke from half a world away. I mean, like, I know that we're just one data point, but that's the part of it that's difficult for me. I don't understand why that's necessary in order to get where they're trying to go.
Yeah, and if you add to that point with, I think it was Paris who said that he wants that for like the younger people because
16
they
to
don't have
24-year-olds.
because they don't have the same amount of attention anymore. And he said something about like gaming that should be similar to gaming. Some really weird statement there, like FIFA and Call of Duty, and I was like, even
74-year-old kid
those
there.
two, it's like, okay, why?
How do you do, fellow kids? Like,
he's like Paul Rudd.
And I mean, I don't know, if you don't want to watch 90 minutes of football, then look for another sport. I don't know. I mean,
you're making too much sense.
I mean, of course, there's a reason, for example, why. I mean, another sport that's kind of big in Germany is handball. This is 60 minutes, and there's a reason why, because there's a lot of things happening. But if football games are only like 60 minutes long now, I don't think there will be more happening in those 60 minutes, because I mean, you would imagine that the teams need to just make that change as well. So for the first, at least, I don't know, 10 to 15 games, I would expect really weird kind of football and not really attractive football, because the teams aren't used to just play 30 minutes less. I mean, this is normally something you have if you're away on your training camps, whatever, wherever. This is what you can see, that they play just 60 minutes against teams just to change through the formation to figure something out. But I don't want to watch 60 games of football. I mean, it's 90 minutes of pain. That's okay. And I mean, I don't know how it is in the US, but 90 minutes is like what a lecture here is like, a school lesson as well. So I don't know.
This is another point that also makes no sense to me, because if you compare the amount of time it takes to sit down and watch, a soccer game as compared to an American football match or almost any other sport, the time commitment is significantly less.
Yeah.
For European football. I mean, because it's really, you're sitting down and it's an hour and 45 minutes. It's 2 45-minute halves. There's no commercial breaks. If you're watching American football, there's a timeout and a Doritos commercial every 2 minutes. I mean, you're sitting there for like 3.5 hours watching an American football game. I mean, you have 45 minutes of uninterrupted play, a quick 15-minute halftime, and another 45 minutes. So like the idea that like, oh, soccer's too long. It's shorter than like everything else that exists in the American. Like, it's like, what are we talking about? What are we doing?
We can just make TikTok videos all day long. How about that? That's quick. That's nice and quick, right? And the last thing I want to touch about is that people are making PSG and Dortmund and Bayern as these saints because they didn't join it. It's like they would have eventually joined, and people are forgetting it too. Schalke were in the mix with this before they became crap. We were in the mix a few years ago with these super leagues because we're one of the 3 biggest clubs in Germany. So people are forgetting about that stuff. It's like, come on, like. They were smart because they saw the future. It wasn't the right thing to do, believe me, if another opportunity arises, they will jump at the chance. So let's not make them saints just yet.
Yeah, and because I mean, a lot of people were celebrating Karl-Heinz Rummenigge afterwards, and I don't know if it reached beyond Germany, but there's this book called Football Leagues, where it's actually the first time that there is a talk of a European Super League, and thereby was very willingly to join. I mean, especially Karl-Heinz Rummenigge isn't really the one who should be going forward with that, especially when he put out that statement saying why they wouldn't want to join and saying, well, we're thankful for the Champions League. We have a lot of good memories. And then the memory he picked out was, we still have very fond memories of the final in Lisbon in 2020. And I was like, of all the Champions League finals you played, you picked out the one where there were no fans in the stadium. Like, what the hell?
That guy.
Do you want to take the game in Qatar instead? So maybe this is same level, people. Yeah. And people were really quick to celebrate Dortmund and Bayern, and in Germany, the people were kind of skeptical because we're a bit closer. And I mean, Hans-Joachim Watzke said after, there is this poster at Dortmund, which says UCL, stop UCL reforms. and he basically said, I do not think they're talking about the reforms that are going on and everywhere, and even if they, like every neutral fan, but also every other fan was like, yeah, that's like they put a statement up on their page. This is what they're talking about. What do you think stands UCL reform for? So, yeah, wouldn't, as you've mentioned, especially PSG and Bayern with all their involvement in Qatar, wouldn't hang them too high. And yeah, we still have the reforms. I'm very disappointed at the German officials there for not really going against that. And as mentioned before, this should be a target now as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. It's going to be interesting how that unfolds here with Schalke, all the stuff that's going to unfold here. But let's wrap this podcast up. Where can we know where we can find you, but where can our listeners find you? Because in fact, everyone should follow her and her podcast because you're going to need a lot of it next year. So please, the floor is yours. Plug away whatever you want to plug here.
You can follow me on Twitter on @Eva, and then I think I don't even know my Twitter handle. This is embarrassing. And then it's bonus.
We'll copy her on the thing.
Yeah.
We'll tag her.
And so, of course, follow us on the Zweite Bundesliga podcast. I think it's linked in my bio as well. And, of course, follow Matthew Carriage as well. He's a fellow Schalke fan.
Yes.
So if you don't do that already, do it. He also has another podcast now, which has nothing to do with Zweite Bundesliga or Schalke or German football at all. It's called One on One with Matthew Carriage. He just released an episode with Will Buxton. I'm so sorry.
F1, Formula One.
Yeah, that's right. Will Buxton.
Will Buxton fans.
So go and check that out. And say, I don't have any other podcasts. I'm just... it's enough time consuming as it is for now.
It is.
So yeah, make sure to listen to our podcast if you want. You can already get into it now if you want. I don't know if you want to listen to
recommend
Matt and I rambling about all clubs. We only have like 6 games to talk about at the moment because of COVID. So fun. It's a very short episode at the moment. But anyway, thanks for having me. Of course, this was really fun. I hope I could help a bit. I'm sorry I can't be that optimistic. It's not what us Westphalian people do. We're not optimistic.
No, thank you for joining us. We've actually had Matt on before as well. So, yeah, I'm sure we've been working with you and Matt a lot more in the coming year. Hopefully not more, but, you never know. You never know. So, Jack, where can our followers find you on social media?
Yeah, well, thank you very much for joining us, especially hopping on right after you got off work. You're putting in a busy day for us today. Yes. We appreciate it.
Double shift.
And no worries for forgetting your Twitter handle, because Richard and I have both messed them up repeatedly, and ours are on the screen often as we do it. So let's see if I can do that right now. You can find me on social media at JMMangan, JMMangan. Nailed it. You can follow me at R_KHARMAN. Stay tuned as we try to bring you the latest with the Royal Blues week in, week out, or day in, day out as it seems lately. But until the next podcast comes, we'll be with you, and see you then. Ciao.